Good morning, colleagues. It is 272nd day of heroic struggle of Ukraine. I'm Untitled Chapter and we work from Mediacentru Ukraine. And our guest today is Oleksandr Starukh, the chief of Zaporizhzhia military administration. Hello to you. Good afternoon to you too. Glory to Ukraine. Can you please tell us about the situation in the region, in the Zaporizhzhia city? What do you know as of right now? So the situation for the last day did not change much. The bombing from the enemy side increased a little bit, and during the previous day we had 81 shelling, 56 times our populated areas were bombed, and luckily yesterday nobody died. However, today the Orikhiv city was bombed. That's the city where the bread was gave out, and luckily these people still keep to the rules of safety, and the shell that landed near this humanitarian point of bread given out killed a social worker and wounded two women. That is why the situation is that right now the bombardment, the shelling continues, and that's the situation we have right now. And so basically the day started not quite well. In these terms, we have a wounded, couple of wounded men, and one of our citizens died. And you know, the number of shelling doesn't influence the number of victims. The last time we had victims was the 17th of October when a shell landed right into the house and four men died, even though during the whole day, there were only 14 times of shelling. So all of them will bear responsibility, and we will be able to do in retaliation for every lost life. So on our behalf, we bring our condolences. Can you please tell us about the situation in critical objects, since enemies are targeting not only civilian objects, but also critical infrastructure, and since the calls are coming, what is the situation in the region and in the city? Well, if we are talking in general, it's not okay to say that everything is good when 100 rockets are being launched and targeting power stations. This weekend we had shelling into one of the entertainment enterprises. A heating facility was hit, but the communal services worked good. But all in all, everything was damaged, and together as the same all over the Ukraine, the graphics and schedules of rolling blackouts are working. Obviously, that's not comfortable thing to live through, but at this way or another, there is power in our houses, and rotating power cuts are taking place, and sometimes people. So that's the situation as it right now, and we are still doing measures on preserving the power sources, and our communal services help us so much, and as well as our citizens who limit themselves in utilizing the power sources. So we still have gas in the tubes, and they're in the occupied territory, obviously where the combat warfare actions are taking place. People don't have power stations, power at all, gas at all. And in Energodar there is another situation. In Bryansk also another situation. In Vasilievsky district also there is different situation when the clearing facilities were hit half years ago. That's why none of the heating facilities work, and they have a bunch of other problems. When we are talking about shelling, and we cannot omit here the topic of the Zaporizhzhia power plant. What we know is that right now the power plant was attacked by the enemy. There was indicated the hits into the critical infrastructure objects that sustained the two energy power blocks. What is the threat of this? So, so Energoatom is working quite responsible way in order to, and they switch on the necessary procedures in order to balance the system. Right now, the power station is consuming the energy, not producing it, and correspondingly, the power station is also serving as the object of provision of heat for example, Energodar city town. And due to the fact that today the station is still operating, it allows to provide some heat to the city. Together with this, one does everything possible in order to the enemy is postponing and putting the obstacles in order to provide heat to Energodar. That is why the shelling continues. On Sunday, there was quite big big events when infrastructure was hit, and correspondingly in such a situation we are coming on the very thin ice when the situation is becoming more and more complicated, and it can sharpen the question of nuclear safety. Russia still continues to act as a terrorist, as a state that it is terrorizing both our country and other countries by means of nuclear crisis. So the fact that the enemy is shelling Zaporizhzhia and power stations, is this the only question, or this shelling also bears some other threats? Why does enemy do this? Because the question is put is not only for Zaporizhzhia region citizens. Well, nobody is engaging and shelling the power station blocks, but a rocket can be targeted anywhere because we all understand that there is a factor of stray bullets and so on. So the engagement and hitting the infrastructure when the power stations were hit, the ones that produce and provide energy and power sources to Energodar. They're trying to annihilate the power network that unites this power station with the rest of the country and with the Ukrainian power system. They still continue to do the measures on complicating the systems of provision on those occupied territories. They do not allow to switch on the blocks of power station in order to provide Energodar and Ukraine with electricity. As we have already mentioned, since winter and the cold period of year is coming, and one needs heat, one needs power stations in the region and in Zaporizhzhia town, and the enemy doesn't allow this to happen. What are the alternative means of power in Zaporizhzhia if this kind of blackouts will occur? So in the communities we conduct work, and we have worked through the question of limitation of energy consumption. We understand that the situation might occur, and the period can be from 1 day up to 1 week period. That is why correspondingly we are continuing our work in the communities where there is a problem with power provision and heat provision. The situation also lies in the sphere that the centers of social security and communal centers and correspondingly all the shelters have to become points where people can be hidden, but obviously everyone should get ready for the possible complication of the situation. In Zaporizhzhia and in the regional center, as we can see, many people moved outside of the town. Many people have negotiated with their relatives, those who live in private sector, who have their own private heating facilities in their houses. And in such a way, people are trying to make it possible so that they will be aside from danger. All of them have supplies of food, water, both technical and portable. That's why I'm sure that we will still do the measures on assurance together with our power sources workers and social services workers in order to create the conditions to live through these complicated events if they happen. Here it all depends on every one of us, and the responsibility lies on every one of us. The responsibility not for themselves, but also for their relatives and for their families. We also asked our enterprises, and these enterprises made. So we asked them to be able to make some kind of points where the necessary help will provided to their workers. It includes generators, heating facilities, and the places where people can get hidden. And taking into account that today we had +7 degrees of warmth, so this week still remains relatively warm. Only tomorrow at night it will drop to -1, but generally it's +6, +7 degrees during the daylight, and we urge everyone to use this present of nature in order to use this time most effective. So coming back to the question of power station, nuclear power station, people have already identified that Russian enemy is behaving quite aggressively with the local workers, and we can see that the enemy still continues shelling of critical infrastructure object. What else do we know about the behavior of Russian enemies there and on the premises of nuclear power station? Well, they still continue to be there in the shelters there at the station. They feel quite comfortable there. It's the warmth from the station. They are okay with it. And those people who are there in this city, where our operators and our engineers are there, they have to be there in the cold conditions, even though the situation is relatively okay since it is still warm outside. And in the city, only less than 1/3 of the city population remained, and we can still use the electricity devices for the heating of the houses. But we still have information that Russian troops are forcing local workers to sign some kind of papers. People refuse, and at the same time, Russians do not let them out of the city. As it right now, the following and terroristic activity of occupants continues in terms of civilian objects. We have 59 people who are proved as to be kidnapped and taken as a prisoner. Most majority of them is still there in Energodar, especially Ivan Semenyuk since March, as well as the chief of the Rudne town leader. He's been there as a captive since March. Also, a big amount of these people, we managed to liberate them, or either occupants let them go, but still 215 of them remains there as captives in Russian hands. Their fate is unknown, and out of them there are 6 juvenile people. Yes, indeed. What is going on there in the head of Russian enemy we are not aware of. However, take into account that the level of nuclear threat is still being measured in the town. What is the amount of atomic structures there in the air is there? Can you please tell us about the conditions of people around the NPP? How do they behave in case something goes south? So in case of nuclear threat or any danger, there are strict protocols, and these protocols have been issued to the population. Trust me, in the 30 kilometers radius area, each family knows what to do. In the whole region, on the occupied and on the obviously on those non-occupied territories, the storages of medical storages have been created. In August, we conducted a huge line of trainings together with in synchronization with the nearest Dnipropetrovsk region and their services in case a nuclear threat might occur. All these people know clearly what they should do, and the reaction system also works. Also, there are handouts of what one should do step by step in case of nuclear threat. One can also find them on our website and the community websites. And the most important is to be able to listen all those commands that might occur, whether it's a command for evacuation from the engagement area if this occurs, or on the contrary, one has to close the doors and stay at home and simply to wait for some period of time. It will all depend on the weather conditions and on the level of this pollution. Obviously, that NPP is not Chernobyl atomic station. That's a modern nuclear power station with many levels of protection, and all these reactors are there in the concrete blocks and protected. But together with all these, we all have still to be ready, and the trainings should continue with the community, with those communities who are there within the 30 kilometers radius, as well as those who are 50 kilometers far away if the necessity for movement will occur. When we're talking about the moods of the population of Zaporizhzhia region, what statistics do you have? how many people have moved out from the region, from the town for the last week, and are there those people who are coming back? Well, this is quite a sinusoid story. Every time territories, from occupied territories, on the non-occupied territories, only 78 people moved for the last couple of days. Truth be told, dozens of thousands of people move from the region, and daily there is evacuation taking place. And I would say this is from 700 to 900 people into other regions of Ukraine. And also, luckily, we are stating the declining of the amount of those people who are there in the combat warfare areas. So the number of people there is declining. I would say it's like from 5% to 20% tops. As it right now, one cannot state that there is a huge drain of population. The shelling on civilian objects luckily stopped for a while, and God bless for them not to happen again. And many of the people moved outside of the town to their private sectors. So the heating is still working in the city. That is why this is one of the main factors why people are coming back to the regional center. But still, we have to be ready to any situations that might occur as a result of terroristic actions of occupants. And I'm sure we all are ready for this. Thank you so much. That was Oleksandr Starukh, head of Zaporizhzhia Oblast Military Administration. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. So stay with us. We will see you soon. Follow our updates and our schedule updates on the